Without further ado, let me introduce our 21st president of DePauw University, Dr. Lori S. White, to the podium for her remarks.
Good morning. That sounds great. Thank you for that call and response to my good morning. And I wanted to thank Ann Cunningham for introducing me. Ann is our Vice President for Development and Alumni Engagement. And it is Ann and her team who have planned this wonderful weekend for all of us. For many of you, this may be the first time you've eaten in this beautiful dining commons in Hoover Hall. This is where our students and our staff and faculty have the opportunity to gather for meals and for fellowship. It is obviously a beautiful facility, and so thanks to Dave and Suzanne Hoover and many other alumni who helped us build this beautiful, beautiful building. And I also want to thank all of the folks in Bon Appetit. They are the folks who have prepared this delicious meal for us, who will be serving us throughout this weekend. So if we could give a round of applause for the Bon Appetit folks. Thank you all for being here this weekend and for coming back home to DePauw. This is my very first alumni reunion weekend, and it's the first time I've had the opportunity to meet, greet, and speak to so many of you all in person. Now, meeting people in real life after meeting them the first time on Zoom or with the mask on, it's kind of like going on a blind date. No one is exactly how you imagined them. So I know you all thought I would be taller. Greetings now are a little awkward because you don't know whether you're supposed to shake hands or bump elbows, stand 6 feet apart, or hug. So I'm perfectly okay with all of the above. You just let me know what you're most comfortable with. And I read an article the other day that said what people want most post-COVID is to be together in person, not to listen to long speeches and presentations. So I plan to share a few words with you by way of campus updates. I want to provide some highlights about the strategic plan that we just announced. I want to answer any questions that you all might have. And I will be here the entire weekend if there are other questions that I'm not able to get to in this session that you'd like to talk to me about. But let me start by saying how excited I am to be at DePauw. And I want to thank all of you for the wonderful reception I've received from the DePauw family since my appointment as president almost 2 years ago. And I suspect you probably want to know a little bit more about this woman who was named president of your alma mater 2 years ago and who most of you are meeting in person for the first time. Now, you can read my formal bio on the web, so I thought I would start by sharing a few fun facts about me that you can't read in my bio. So I'm originally from San Francisco, California. Any Californians in the room? Right on. Thanks for bringing the sunshine. And many people will tell you that they're from San Francisco, but most who say that are from adjacent areas to San Francisco. I'm actually a San Francisco native. I was born in the city of San Francisco, and I was raised there till I was 18, and I went off to college. A couple of people asked me where I went to school, did my undergraduate work at the University of California, Berkeley, and my PhD is from Stanford University. There are 3 Dr. Whites in my family. My father earned a PhD in psychology, my sister has a PhD in geology, and I have my PhD in higher education. My mom is a nurse, an RN, and my other sister is a singer/actress/scriptwriter/paralegal. So she's the artist in the family. I moved to Greencastle from St. Louis. Most recently, I worked at Washington University in St. Louis. And I moved here with my husband, the first gentleman, Tony Tillman. Some of you may have seen Tony last night. We were out there cutting it up on the dance floor, and you will see him again this evening. Tony and I had our first date in 1995, and our second date 10 years later. He's a very patient man. I am a huge sports fan. In fact, I'm conflicted right now because the Golden State Warriors, my hometown team, are playing the Boston Celtics. Of course, the Boston Celtics general manager is an alum of DePauw. So I guess I have to root for both teams. I love to read, I love to sing, I love to dance, and I look forward to dancing the night away again this evening. And Mike Smith has agreed to give me the first dance. Tonight, we're gonna have a band that's gonna play a whole lot of Motown. So I hope that you'll stay around and dance with us. And my midlife crisis car is a candy apple red convertible with the license plate. Anybody know my license plate? Not DePauw when, it's 21. So you'll see it parked out there. And I love my work. Higher education has been my chosen career for over 40 years. And higher education, we all know, is transformative. It certainly has been for my family, it has been for me, and I'm sure it has been true for all of you. And I am committed to ensuring that a DePauw education is accessible and available to the best, brightest, and most talented students who desire to discover our gold within. So now that you know a little bit more about me, let me share with you some of the exciting things that are happening on campus. So despite the challenges of COVID for all of us, we remained fully open this past academic year, welcoming back all of our students in person. And in fact, the mom over there, she and I were just talking. She has 2 kids who are here at DePauw, and she told me that her kids told her they had a great year last year, and I would agree. The class that entered this past fall, the fall of 2022, that entered this past fall, it's the class of 2025, is 500 strong, and that's up by 100 students over each of the last 2 years prior to my arrival. And of the class of 2025, 45% are honors scholars or fellows, and I know many of you were honors scholars or fellows in one of the fellows programs. 38% were athletic recruits, and I know so many of you played on one of our sports teams. 18% of the class of 2025 are domestic students of color, 17% are international students, 17% are first-generation students, 16% are legacies. For those of you who still have kids that are college age, I'm looking for them. And those of you who have grandchildren, I can start recruiting them now. And 24 students in the class of 2025 are School of Music students. And these students are really smart. Average high school GPA is 3.97. Their average SAT is 1290, and their average ACT is 28. There are 12 valedictorians, 6 salutatorians, and 8 Lilly Scholars. And so what that means is none of us in this room could have gotten into DePauw today. The students in the class of 2025 are from 32 states and 20 countries. 35% are in Indiana, and that is deliberate for us. I have a win in our backyard strategy, and so we want to make sure that we lock down the state of Indiana so that any student, college-age student in the state of Indiana sees DePauw as a viable and desirable place for them to go to college. And the top 4 states outside of Indiana represented in the class of 2025 are Illinois, Ohio, Missouri, and New York. We just recruited the class of 2026, so this is the next class that will come in this fall, and we expect to enroll a class of between 525 and 540. So. And that is toward our goal of having a class of 600 students each year. So we are trending in the right direction. And Beth Petrie and her team, Beth, would you wave your hand as the Vice President for Enrollment Management? She is new this year, and she and her team are doing incredible work. We are in an increasingly competitive market for prospective students, and the pandemic has further complicated college admissions. In fact, one article that I read the other day says that there are 1 million fewer students enrolled in college now than before the pandemic. So the fact that we've done this well these past 2 years is even better news given today's enrollment context. And our strategic plan, which I'll talk about in more detail in a few minutes, is focused on positioning DePauw to successfully and consistently attract the best and brightest students to choose our alma mater. Now, we of course know that DePauw is an incredible institution, and it's also great to have our view of DePauw confirmed by others. In this year's U.S. News & World Report rankings in higher education, we continue to be ranked as the #1 liberal arts college in the state of Indiana, and we are ranked in the top 50 of all liberal arts colleges nationwide. We are number 46 to be exact. So I think that that is great news, but we can't grow weary in well-doing. By the time I leave, I want us to be ranked in at least the top 25 of all liberal arts colleges nationwide. Another higher education ranking, College Consensus, ranks us in the top 100 of all universities across the country. And in fact, in this ranking of the schools in Indiana, only Notre Dame and Purdue and DePauw are ranked in the top 100. And on that ranking, we're ranked number 27 of all liberal arts colleges and number 29 among the small colleges. So that's a great ranking also. And then one of my favorite rankings is the Princeton Review. And the reason I like the Princeton Review is the Princeton Review talks to actual college students and asks those students to tell them about their experiences at their respective universities. And so our students, when they were surveyed by the Princeton Review, highlighted the availability of internships through DePauw. They said that class discussion is encouraged by professors and that our alumni are actively involved on campus. And speaking of alumni, as the president, I love bragging about all of you, about the incredible success of all of our graduates, building on what you have learned as students here to be movers and shakers in our community, in our country, and in the world. And so many of our alumni have been highlighted recently in the media, so I thought I would just share a few of those alumni who have gotten recognition in the media. There was a story last fall in the Indianapolis Star about how DePauw became a sports executive factory. We, of course, all know Brad Stevens, who was the coach at Butler and the coach of the Boston Celtics, and as I mentioned earlier, is now the Boston Celtics CEO. Joe Shane, who's the new general manager of the New York Giants, Matt Klein, who's vice president of operations for the Milwaukee Brewers, and Austin Brown, who's a superstar pro sports agent. And in these articles, this particular article, each one of them talked about their DePauw experiences as Division III athletes or management fellows and the alumni connections and internships that they received while students and while young alumni that positioned them to be so successful. So who could imagine a school that doesn't have a Division I basketball or football team has all of these incredible executives in pro sports. Another story that was in the media focused on two of our alums who are covering the war in Ukraine, who honed their journalism skills as media fellows here at DePauw, and one of whom landed an interview with President Zelensky of Ukraine. And then another article in celebration of Women's History Month in March highlighted two other of our alumni, Gretchen Cryer and Nancy Ford. They were recognized in a Billboard article for one of the top 10 theater songs written by women. Their song is titled, "I'm Getting My Act Together and Taking It on the Road." The song is actually titled "Old Friend," and it's from that production, "I'm Getting My Act Together and Taking It on the Road." Gretchen and Nancy started writing songs together for campus productions when they were students at DePauw, and they've been collaborating for almost 70 years. So I see nods, so some of you may know the two of them. So these are stories that confirm what the Princeton Review underscores about the magic of DePauw. The Princeton Review describes DePauw as a collaborative community with caring faculty, that we are responsive to student feedback, that we focus on students' needs, and that we emphasize a well-rounded education. Students describe our professors as knowledgeable, interesting, empathetic, and invested. And students describe their classmates as open-minded and eager to learn about the world around them. So that sounds like a pretty good place to go to school, I think. So Greek life. Oh yes, that probably deserves a round of applause. So Greek life, I know the overwhelming majority of you were involved in Greek life when you were here as students, and I think some of you are even staying overnight in your fraternity and sorority houses. Bless you for that. I know that many of you were attracted to your involvement in Greek life, and tell me that your Greek life involvement contributed to your deep friendships with your classmates, provided you with opportunities for leadership development and cultivation of so many other skills, that your affiliation enhanced your sense of community at DePauw. And certainly those are some of the reasons that I joined a sorority as an undergraduate at UC Berkeley. I'm a Sigma Kappa. We've not ever had a chapter of that here, but my sorority headquarters, like so many of yours, are located right here in the Indianapolis area. And despite a significant nationwide downturn in Greek affiliation with fraternities and sororities is still alive and well here at DePauw. Nationally, there's been a 30% decrease in Greek membership since 2019, and that's been exacerbated nationwide by COVID. So while DePauw Greek affiliation at DePauw is likely lower than when you were students, and I'll share the percentages in a minute, we still remain one of the most highly affiliated universities in the country, and DePauw's decrease in Greek affiliation has been slower than that of other schools across the country. So during our most recent recruitment that occurred this past January, 55% of first-year men accepted a bid to join an IFC fraternity. And the U.S. News and World Report ranks us number 2 of all colleges and universities in the country in terms of the overall percentage of men who are in Greek organizations. Over 66% of all men are in a fraternity at DePauw. So in case you're curious to know which college is first in the overall percentage of male students who are Greek organizations, and somebody over here guessed it earlier, I think it was you, it is Washington and Lee at 79%. And we are second at 66%. And Wabash is fourth at 61%. And I always thought all of Wabash was one big old fraternity, but... And yes, I am still very bitter about losing the Monon Bell game. Up 21-0, and we lost the game, so we're gonna get them next year. With respect to women, 46% of first-year women accepted a bid to join a Panhellenic sorority. DePauw Panhellenic is the only college Panhellenic council out of all the universities in the Northeast and the Midwest of the country that had more women sign up for recruitment in January 22 than in January 2020. So while I know the numbers sound smaller to you based on the 90% plus affiliation percentage when you were here, our affiliation percentage, as I said, are still higher than most universities across the country. And for the women, we are number 6 in the country in terms of affiliation. It is the University of the South at 72%. That is number 1. 57% of all women at DePauw are affiliated with a Panhellenic sorority. In addition to Panhellenic and IFC chapters, we also have historically African-American fraternity and sorority chapters on campus. In fact, my husband is a member of what we call the Divine Nine. He's an Omega Psi Phi from Purdue University. We also have multicultural Greek chapters. These organizations have different recruitment cycles, so I don't have their numbers to report at this time. And all of our organizations are open to any student who wishes to join, regardless of ethnic, cultural, or religious backgrounds. In fact, I am very proud of all of our Greek organizations for how diverse they are and how many students from across the country and across the world have decided to affiliate with one of our organizations here. And a primary objective in our strategic plan is for DePauw to be a model for a 21st century Greek life experience. I don't yet have a definition of a 21st century model for Greek life. I think that's something that we're going to create together. But as long as Greek life exists here and as long as students want to affiliate with those organizations, I think DePauw can be a model for a values-based, values-driven Greek life community. So more on that to come. And athletics. How many of you were athletes here when you were at DePauw? All right, nice to see you. And it was great yesterday to see folks getting their D blankets for earning a letter here when they were at DePauw. So with respect to athletics, we continue to be a D3 athletic powerhouse. So football, softball, men's cross country, and women's basketball all won conference championships this past year. And in fact, I've got, yes, isn't that great? So you'll see a bunch of folks walking around with big old jewelry, rings and necklaces and whatnot for winning a conference championship. So that's really exciting as well. And we've got a great athletic director, as you know, in Stevie Baker-Watson. Stevie Baker-Watson was just named one of the best athletic directors in the country for D3. She will get an award in Las Vegas in June. So I look forward to celebrating her and her leadership. And we just had commencement. So all in all, despite the challenges of COVID over the past 2 years, our campus feels vibrant, our students are happy, there's renewed positive energy on campus amongst the student body after a couple of really tough years right before and during COVID. We celebrated commencement on May 22nd. Alumnus John Fort, who many of you know, class of 1998, served as our commencement speaker. John is a journalist with his own show on CNBC, and many of you may have remembered John when he served as the editor of the DePauw when he was a student on campus. And I understand back then, the administration was none too happy with John for his many exposés about things that the administration preferred remain less public. But actually, John was and is the kind of student and alumnus I love, a student and an alum like each of you who is passionate about making sure that DePauw is the best version of itself. And my very best commencement moment, in addition to John's commencement address on the themes of love, truth, and impact, was when one of the students, as I reached out to hand him his diploma, he grabbed me, he enveloped me in a bear hug, and he said, "Dr. White, I promise I'm gonna make you proud." Can't have a better moment than that. Now, there are, of course, a number of critical issues that we and other college campuses are contending with. So in addition to managing through COVID, we're recruiting and yielding students in a competitive environment. We're trying to attract and retain talented employees during the Great Resignation. And of course, we want to manage our financial resources wisely and well, given fiscal challenges. One particular issue about which I've received a number of questions and concerns is regarding freedom of expression at DePauw. Are we truly a university that supports free expression for all members of our community, inside of and outside of the classroom? And how can we better demonstrate our commitment to freedom of expression? The values of a liberal arts education must include a commitment to the free flow of ideas and the space and the tools for us to research, challenge, refute, support, argue for or against the full range of ideas across the ideological spectrum. You might be aware of a survey done last year by an organization called FIRE. FIRE is an organization that defines itself as supporting and promoting and defending free speech on campus. And this organization rated DePauw in that particular survey last among the universities it surveyed for the second year in a row. And we can quibble with FIRE's methodology. It's a survey that included about 150 colleges nationwide out of over 4,000 colleges and universities across the country. And the number of DePauw students surveyed was also a very small percentage of our entire student body. However, I don't want DePauw to be ranked last in anything, particularly with respect to free speech and freedom of expression. In my previous role as the Vice Chancellor for Student Affairs at Washington University in St. Louis, I had the opportunity to lead many campus and national conversations about the importance of freedom of expression on college campuses. And this past year, I've served as a member of the Bipartisan Commission Academic Leaders Task Force on Campus Free Expression. And as someone who's a strong advocate for freedom of expression, heck, I'm a UC Berkeley grad. I take seriously the responsibility of being a role model for upholding the values of free expression at DePauw. So I've got some good news to share in that regard. In FIRE's most recent survey, DePauw is no longer ranked as part of the list of schools that are not supportive of freedom of expression. And I've had some good conversations personally with representatives from the FIRE organization, asking them to serve as a consultant to us on any policies and practices that we might have that are not aligned with supporting a culture of free expression on campus. So what are we doing to promote, affirm, and demonstrate our commitment to freedom of expression on campus? A commitment to freedom of expression is stated on our website as one of what I call our transcendent priorities. Those priorities like our deep commitment to teaching, scholarship, creative expression, and co-curricular learning that are fundamental and enduring priorities for DePauw. The faculty, university leadership, and the DePauw Board of Trustees have all affirmed our freedom of expression statement. That statement, which is an articulation of our community values with respect to freedom of expression, emerged from collaborative and critical conversation that we had with members of our campus community, faculty, staff, student, members of the board. This statement's now posted on our website, and I encourage you to take some time to read it. And for those of you who may be familiar with the Chicago Principles on Freedom of Expression, you might be wondering why we didn't adopt those exactly. The best practices regarding these statements encourage each campus through collaborative community conversations to develop statements that reflect the unique campus mission, culture, environment, and campus values. In fact, just this week, I received an email from FIRE, from their senior program officer. I'm going to quote it exactly. Dear President White, I'm writing to congratulate you on the recent release of the university's Statement of Freedom of Expression values. It is a wonderfully articulated statement of the university's commitment, and I especially appreciated the careful and important points the statement makes about freedom of expression and diversity. So I encourage you to read our statement, and it's great to have that statement affirmed by the very organization that previously had rated us as low on the free speech scale. So feeling pretty good about that. Just a few other things related to freedom of expression, and then I'm going to move on to talk about our wonderfully gold and bold strategic plan. As I mentioned previously, I'm a member of this bipartisan task force that is looking at campus-free expression. This task force was co-chaired by a former Republican and former Democratic governor, and involved other college presidents, faculty members, students, and others who do research in this field. And this report offers a number of recommendations for boards of trustees, presidents, and faculty members, student affairs staff, as we lead our universities to be refocused on creating campus environments that are really focused on campus-free expression. You can also access this report on our website. In fact, we've got a great website with lots of tools and resources available to colleagues across the country on freedom of expression. So if you're interested in any additional information, please go to our website. We are also going to pilot a module on freedom of expression during our student orientation this fall, because one of the things that I've learned is if we are asking students to engage in challenging dialogue in our classrooms and in our outside of the classroom spaces, those informal conversations we all used to have late at night, our students don't have the tools to do those well. And so if we expect for students to engage at that level, then we need to do more to help provide students with those tools. And so we are going to spend some time doing that in orientation. We're also going to be talking about this in new faculty orientation. And we are also piloting some freshman seminars focused on the title of Courageous Conversation. So we'll continue to keep all of you focused on this, because for DePauw to be a true model for freedom of expression on our campus, it's going to take all of us. And I always say freedom of expression is not a one-way street. So all of us have to support allowing members of our campus community and speakers whom we invite to campus to express ideas that we may personally disagree with. That's the true spirit of a liberal arts education. So let me now move to talk about our strategic plan, DePauw Bold and Gold 2027. Bold, because we are taking bold steps to reimagine the liberal arts college of the 21st century, and gold, because we seek to be the gold standard for the 21st century liberal arts college. Our strategic plan is framed as 4 overarching and interconnected goals: academic renewal, exemplary student experience, institutional equity, and flourishing university, with a set of objectives that support each goal. And you can pick up one of the brochures here, and it will also appear in your Alumni magazine if you want to read in greater detail. Collectively, these goals, through enhancing the academic, student, and employee experience, will enable us to attract and retain the best students, faculty, and staff talent to DePauw. We believe we will increase the pool of students applying and accepting offers to attend DePauw, including expanding into new markets through the various initiatives we are proposing. And moreover, we believe our strategic plan will increase the value proposition of a DePauw education, will position us well to meet the challenges of the higher education competitive landscape, and will help raise our institutional profile. Remember, top 25. And will enable DePauw to achieve long-term financial stability so that we will flourish as a university through our next 200 years and beyond. Now, when we announced the strategic plan in March, you all received an email from me that included a video describing the plan. And so for those of you who didn't quite get to opening up the email and looking at the video, we're going to play the video again for you later this weekend. And as I said, you'll also receive a copy of the details of the strategic plan in your DePauw magazine this summer. So let me just provide a few highlights of the plan. And these highlights that I'm going to provide to you are a snapshot in time with respect to the strategic plan. So what we are working on right now most immediately, our strategic plan covers the next 5 years. And I'll continue to provide updates to the alumni community as the strategic plan unfolds along the way. So in support of academic renewal, so while keeping the College of Liberal Arts and Sciences at the center of DePauw, we will be establishing 2 new schools: a School of Business and Leadership to launch in the fall of 2023, and a new creative school to launch in the fall of 2024. At the May faculty meeting, so this past May, the faculty approved 4 new academic programs, including a film and media arts major and minor, an entrepreneurship minor, a business analytics major, and a finance major. And new academic programs that the faculty will be voting on this fall include a leadership minor, a minor in music creation and technology, a major and minor in design studies, and a major in arts leadership for social change. Now, so for those of you who are wondering, well, what about the School of Music? All of the programs and degrees historically offered through the School of Music will be part of the new creative school. And the new creative school will focus on the creative and performing arts writ large, as well as encouraging and exploring other areas of creativity, innovation, and design. And I got a hand clap of praise back there from that table about the new creative school and all of what we envision will be occurring there. In support of the exemplary student experience goal, we're focused on enhancing the sense of belonging for all students, starting with the first-year residential experience. I was talking this morning about, well, what about the students who aren't affiliated with Greek Life? You know, Greek Life is a great way to build community and for students to feel connected to the institution, and I certainly want to encourage that for students who desire that affiliation. And what about the 40% of students who, for whatever reason, choose not to affiliate? We want to make sure that those students also feel the same strong sense of community, connection, and belonging at DePauw. And so to be a university that provides an exemplary student experience, we want that for every single student, regardless of their affiliation. I already talked about our focus on being a model for a 21st century Greek life experience, and so we are starting those conversations now. And we also have a strong focus on supporting student wellness through athletics, recreation, spiritual life, and increased mental health support. This is a tough time to be a young person, and we want to make sure that we are encouraging students to think about wellness in a well-rounded way. Want to make sure we have all the mental health support we need for students, but I'm hoping we can get students to focus on their wellness before they feel like they need to see a counselor to talk about a mental health crisis. I'm in the process of hiring a new vice president for student affairs who will take the place of Alan Hill, who is retiring this month after many, many years of service to DePauw. So I will announce that new appointment probably sometime in the next 2 weeks, and that person will be charged with leading our goal to truly be provide an exemplary student experience. Oh, sorry, lost my notes. In support of the institutional equity goal, we're committed to ensuring that all members of our community feel affirmed, supported, and have the full opportunity to participate in the full measure of a DePauw experience. And through our Flourishing University goal, we want to make sure that we attract and retain the best, brightest, and most diverse talent to DePauw. That would be all of our faculty, all of our staff, all of our students. We want to ensure that we have strong partnerships with the Greencastle community, and I hope that you all will take some time to make your way to the town square and see all of the new restaurants that we have downtown. We've got a rooftop bar, we got a wine bar, we've got a great donut shop, and lots of great things are happening downtown. And many thanks to Joyce Green and Judson Green for their investments in downtown. We also want to make sure that we can engage all of you in meaningful and impactful ways. And so we're so glad to have you back on campus. Thanks to all of you that have volunteered to help plan this weekend or who have served on various advisory boards, and look forward to talking to you about other ways in which you can remain involved and connected with your alma mater. And we certainly want to nurture and grow our endowment to flourish as an institution for the next 185 years. Somebody just asked me a question about our endowment, and our endowment at least was healthy in December. It was about 800 million. I haven't checked the statements lately with the stock market, but 800 million is pretty good. Do know, though, that the schools that we are chasing that are in the top 25, all of their endowments are over $1 billion. Some of their endowments are closer to $2 billion. And so for DePauw to be able to compete in that space, we need to get our endowment over $1 billion. So that is also on my list to do before I retire as president, which isn't going to be for a little while. The total investment for us to realize the entirety of our strategic plan is $210 million. And following the launch of the plan, we announced two $20 million gifts toward the creation of the New School for Business and Leadership. Gifts from the Ubben and the Sanger families, and we've also received other commitments towards support of the Creative School, towards support of the College of Liberal Arts and Sciences, and we plan to launch a targeted fundraising campaign in the near future, so of course stay tuned for announcements about that. Now, when we announce big gifts like those two $20 million gifts, it may make some of us feel that unless we can give a six-figure gift, our gifts don't really matter. So Tim Ubben, who we sadly lost this past year, would remind us always that his and Sharon's first gift to DePauw was for $26. He, of course, gave so much more to DePauw over his lifetime, not just in terms of financial commitments. He gave just as much in service and in love for Old Gold. But I like to share that story because I think what that says is that Tim and Sharon knew back in the day they didn't have a whole lot of money, but they wanted to demonstrate that they could give some of what they had to DePauw. And each year they gave a little bit more and a little bit more and a little bit more until they were able to give many significant gifts. And so I share that with you to say that as you think about where you are going to give, we always hope that DePauw is in your top 3 philanthropies, and don't think that you have to give me a gift of $20 million. If you've got $20 million, I'll take it. But I want you to know that anything that you give to your alma mater in terms of monetary gifts, in terms of service, in terms of your time, in terms of your testimony about what a great place this is, all of that matters. And so I hope that you remember as alumni, you told me that you love DePauw because you're still in touch with your former professors 36 years post-graduation. That you're still in love with DePauw because of our small class sizes, the ability that you had to connect personally with the professor, and the million opportunities that you had while you were here to be able to try so many things. Hope that you'll remember that you love DePauw because of our strong alumni base, as evidenced by how many of you took the time this weekend to come back to campus. Hope that you remember that you love DePauw because of the opportunity that you had to learn from so many different people on campus and off. I hope you remember that you love DePauw because you too received a scholarship so that you could attend college here. That you fell in love with DePauw the moment that you set foot on campus, like I did when I finally got out of my car. It took me 3 times to get out of my car to set foot on campus, but once I did, I fell in love. And that I hope you remember that you love DePauw because DePauw is a place where you were exposed to different fields of study, where you were able to dialogue with professors and fellow students with many perspectives, and where you had experiences that you will remember for a lifetime. And I hope you remember that you love DePauw because this is where you met your spouse and your lifelong partner. So I hope that your love for DePauw will inspire you to invest in the aspects of the strategic plan that are most meaningful to you at whatever level you believe you can contribute your time, your talent, your treasure, and your testimony. A friend of mine was recently a candidate for a college presidency, and she told me when she was interviewing that the chair of the board at that institution where she applied asked her this question. The chair of that board asked my friend, "Could you fall in love with this place?" So unlike all of you, I'm not an alumni of DePauw, but I have fallen in love with this place. And I feel blessed every day that I've been entrusted to lead our alma mater to a very bright, bold, and gold future. Thank you very much. So I think I have time for a few questions. My timekeepers will tell me. So if folks have a few questions, do we have a microphone? So you have to shout and I'll repeat the question. Anybody have a question for me? Yes, go ahead. And if you'll tell people who you are.
Tom Moe, class of 74. Thank you, that was a very good update. Is there anything the university can do to get more faculty to live in the area?
Oh. The question is there anything that we can do to get more faculty to live in the area? So let me answer this question in 2 ways. The first is that we actually do not have a lot of housing stock right now in Greencastle. I've just hired 2 new vice presidents. They both want to live in Greencastle. They're having a hard time finding a house to buy. So part of our challenge is inventory. The second is, as part of our strategic plan, in our flourishing goal, we envision over time that we might be able to create opportunities where the university either works with the developer to develop property that the developer builds, and then first priority goes to faculty and staff at DePauw who desire to live there, or we buy and build that ourselves. So that is in our strategic plan. That's not going to happen overnight, but I hope over time we'll be able to do that. When I was at Stanford, for example, and it's really expensive, of course, to live in Palo Alto, but if you've ever been on that campus, they've got lots of housing on campus proper for faculty and staff, and so, we've got a lot of land, and so there's some opportunity for us to do that. But right now, it's really an inventory issue. Yes, go ahead.
I appreciate your speech today, but I'm wondering if your freedom of expression talk extends to all people, including conservatives.
Yes. So the question is, does my freedom of expression talk, or talking about freedom of expression, extend to all people, including conservatives? And the answer to that is yes. Because freedom of expression, as I said, is not a one-way street. So that protects each of our ability, regardless of our background, our ideology, our perspective, our experience, to show up as our full, authentic selves. So yes, that freedom of expression is free for all of us. Absolutely, absolutely, absolutely. What I will say is, let me add this. We live in a challenging environment. There are not great role models for freedom of expression in our country. And one of the things that we're doing here at DePauw, attempting to do, is modeling how two people who have different perspectives can engage in a civil dialogue with one another, even though they come from different places on a particular topic. So this fall, as part of the Oven Lecture Series, we have invited Cornell West and Robbie George. Cornell West is a liberal with a big L. Robbie George is a conservative with a big C. They are great friends. And so they're going to be here on campus dialoguing as a way of modeling for our community, ways in which people who disagree with one another can have a civil conversation. And we plan to do much more of that. Yes, go right ahead. Excuse me now?
And it's optimum, you would not need a safe.
So the question is, it's optimum that you would not need a safe space. And so I think all of our spaces on campus should be places that affirm all members of our campus community. I think that that's really important.
Need for a smaller, safe space.
Well, I don't. What I would say to this is, I think there are places on campus that all different kinds of people identify as safe for them. And so for some students that might be the living room of my fraternity house, where there are brothers where I feel at home when I walk in the door. For other students that might be the Center for Diversity and Inclusion, where I feel like that's a place I can go and find people who look like me. So there's not a designated safe space on campus that says, this is the room, this is the safe space. I want, again, all places on campus to be places where all members of our community feel affirmed and supported. Yes, go ahead. I see somebody, oh yes, thank you.
T-Ray Phillips, class 91, wife here, Tia, class 91. Son is going to be a junior here at DePauw this year, and our daughter decided to go to DePauw in the second year as a freshman.
Yeah.
It did give us an experience of conversation, and I think it's part of your strategic plans, but I was wondering where the expansion might come from as it relates to the residential living.
Yes.
Because our son lived in Lucy Hall, at the time of Tia's there, that was her dormitory, right? I was on Lucy.
Yeah.
But it did look like it had changed much from 1990 or 1980.
Yeah, it hadn't.
Yeah, we've got this beautiful Vernon Jordan Hall, and so we've got quite a different, sort of experience that's going on amongst all. And I realize we are where we are. But where in that strategic plan is the rest of the residential development? There's great bones along the Hall and Lucy, but how do we make them on par with each other and attract the students who want to come and be a part of this academic?
It's a wonderful question, and I appreciate you asking it. So the question is about the residence halls and the residential experience. And I agree with you that our residential facilities are not up to the level of many of our other facilities on campus, and that is a high priority for us. So we do have a residential housing master plan. I'm revisiting that because the master plan was developed before I arrived, and I have some particular ideas about some things that I would like to see. And so we put the building of the next set of residence halls on hold because we didn't have the financial capacity to be able to move forward. So part of my job is to go out there and continue to raise resources so that we'll be able to move forward with our plans for redoing our residence halls. I was just down, anybody here from Dallas or the Texas area? Great. I was just down at SMU. I used to work at SMU before I came to WashU and then before I came to DePauw. And at SMU, I had the opportunity to build 5 new fabulous residential communities and then refurbish 6 others. So this is something that's really important to me. So we'll get it done. I don't have a time frame yet, but I promise you we're going to get it done. Yes. Go ahead.
DePauw experience was relationships with faculty members.
Yes.
And I took one away with me when I left.
I'm not even going to comment on that.
And I know it's illegal now, but it wasn't then.
Yeah, there are a lot of things illegal now that weren't legal then, that were legal then. I'll stop.
Because you didn't have a lot of time to talk about faculty when you were giving us the profiles of students and plans for growth. But if you were a junior faculty member talking to us this morning, what do you think they would be telling us about what they hope for the university or where they see room for improvement or challenges ahead?
Thank you for the question. So the question was about faculty, and I happen to have the Vice President for Academic Affairs here, Dave Burke. So Dave, I'm going to call on you. There he is. I'm going to call on you. You want to talk a little bit about our faculty? And the question is, what do you think junior faculty would say their hopes and dreams are for the university? I could answer it, but since I have him here.
So thank you for the question. I think junior faculty are generally quite excited by the strategic plan. I think they're very hopeful that we'll be able to bring on the new School of Business and Leadership in a way that really leverages our commitment to the liberal arts and sciences. So I think they would be disappointed if we bring on sort of a traditional School of Business and Leadership as sort of a mini IU that isn't done in a way that is authentic to DePauw and that leverages our commitment to the liberal arts and sciences. I think that's one thing that's very important to them. I think another is that we find ways to support them in their ongoing efforts to develop as teachers and as scholars, and find ways for them to bring their scholarship into the classroom. So I think they recognize that the student body is changing very, very rapidly, and they know that they need support in order to continually renew their scholarship and teaching so that they can meet the needs of not only today's students, but the students over many decades to come. So I think those are 2 of the things that are very important to our junior faculty, and I think to all of our faculty, for that matter. Hope that helps.
And I'd also add that our faculty are still really, really involved with students outside of the classroom. In fact, a number of students are here this summer working on research projects with faculty. Faculty continue to mentor students in all kinds of wonderful ways. Faculty continue all of those wonderful informal connections outside of the classroom that you all remember. So I have time for one last question, and I saw one over here. Great.
Hi, my name is Mary Leonard Ramshaw. I'm from the class of 70. Among other students, DePauw has produced many distinguished journalists.
Yes.
And without a journalism major at DePauw. And I was wondering how journalism fits into the new strategic plan, what the Pulliam Center will remain on campus, where it fits into sort of the
So the question was about, Dave, I'm going to call you back up. The question is about journalism and media and the Pulliam Center, and that's actually one of the reasons I asked John Fort to be our commencement speaker, because I wanted to reinforce the importance and value of journalism, particularly in these times. And he talks a lot about how he honed his skills here, being a media fellow, and as an editor of the DePauw. So I'm going to ask Dave to talk a little bit about journalism and vision for that as part of the strategic plan.
Thanks. So let me talk about the Pulliam Center, and indeed all of our centers first, and just say that we envision all of the centers as being centers of the university, not centers of one of the particular schools. So just like the Royal West Library is a resource for the entire student body and the entire faculty and the entire staff, the Pulliam Center will remain a resource for the entire university and the entire student body. We are on the verge, I can't quite release names today, but probably days away from announcing 2 exciting appointments, a new director of the Pulliam Center, and I think when you hear that news, you'll be very excited by it. And also, the question was about journalism, a new faculty member who will come in to advise the DePauw and to teach classes in journalism. So one of the things that I'm hoping that these new hires will be able to do is to help us create a minor in journalism. Journalism right now, our courses are housed partly in the English department and partly in the communication department. And we think with collaboration of these 2 departments, courses we already have in these 2 new hires, that it's likely we'll be able to introduce a journalism minor that would be very complementary to students who want to learn how to do storytelling, factual storytelling in a variety of contexts, whether or not they become practicing journalists. So I'm hoping we're going to have a lot of news on this in the coming year. Thank you.
All right, well, thank you so much for the wonderful questions this morning, for speaking with Dr. White. I know next on our agenda is convocation over at Kresge Auditorium, just next door in the Green Performing Arts Center. So that starts at 11 a.m. So we'll all move from this area just across Bowman Pond/Park for convocation, and then the rest of the afternoon and the evenings with receptions, dinners, and the big band. So thank you so much for your time this morning. Enjoy, and we'll see you over at Kresge Auditorium for an 11 o'clock start of the convocation. Thank you.